نعم يمكن لك أن تبدأي.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to our workshop entitled Building North Arc for Migrants, Refugees, and Religious Communities. It is truly an honor to be here with such a diverse group of researchers. My name is Sarah Al-Hadi. I am a member of the Ijtihad Center for Studies and Training. I will be your moderator throughout today's session. This workshop addresses a very timely and critical topic: how migrants and refugees, particularly religious communities, construct cultural and religious identities in foreign environments. It is based on a bottom-up ethnographic approaches that explores how religion serves as a compass for orientation in hostile or unfamiliar setting. We reflect together on KK studies and engage in provoking discussions on how displaced communities preserve dignity, identity, and belonging through religious and cultural practices. First, let me introduce Professor Tijani Boulawali. Is a researcher and expert in Arabic and Islamic studies, religious translations, and the study of Quranic and scriptural narratives. He focuses on issues related to Islam in the West, interfaith dialogues, and cross-cultural communication. He currently serves as a professor at Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies in Leuven, Belgium, and is the coordinator of the master's program in World Religions and Islamic Theology. Additionally, he is the director of the Ijtihad Center for Studies and Training in Belgium and editor-in-chief of the Ijtihad Journal for Islamic and Arabic Studies in Europe. Professor Boulawali has authored several books on Islam and its interaction with Western societies, including the mutual affair between Islam and the West and Muslims in the West, among others. His scholarly work explores the complexities of Islam thought, cultural identity, and religious narratives in both Arabic and Western contexts. And also, it's my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker, Professor Alexander Horstmann. Professor Horstmann is a research professor, senior lecturer, and experienced training with remarkable experts in the field of violent displacement, humanitarian and aid, and multiculturalism from a global perspective. He brings to our workshop a rich academic and practical background in human rights, religious and ethnic diversity, and higher education for refugees. His deep engagement with ethnographic field work, particularly with indigenous and displaced communities, makes his insights uniquely valuable. His work focuses on politics, identity, power relations, and transnational mobility, always through an ethnographic lens. He's also deeply committed to applied anthropology, civil society work, peace building, and social justice. Today, we are fortunate to benefit from his experience and research, especially his case studies on the Rohingya of Myanmar and the Yazidi community in Germany. Before we begin, I would like to invite Professor Tijani Boulawali, director of the Ijtihad Center, to deliver the opening remarks. Professor Tijani, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your good and beautiful introduction. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, Professor Alexander Horstmann, moderator of this workshop, Sarah El-Hadi, technical supervisor Tariq Maqam, and all attendees of this event. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Professor Alexander Horstmann from the University of Bielefeld in Germany for his personal supervision of this workshop which will undoubtedly enrich the activities of the Ijtihad Center for Studies and Training in Belgium. We deeply appreciate his valuable efforts to collaborate voluntarily to the activities of our research center. Actually, the choice of the workshop topic on building Noah's Ark for migrants, refugees, and religious communities was largely successful, especially at these critical historical stage in which humanity is suffering from conflicts, wars, existential anxiety, and uncertainty. As many of you know, although the Ijtihad Center was established only a few years ago, it was officially registered in Belgium at the end of 2021 and launched its activities in Flanders in 2022. Since then, 6 discussion seminars have been organized in collaboration with the Bruch Foundation in Waregem, in addition to organizing the Islamic Studies program in Dutch, conducting various training programs with centers in Europe and Morocco, and organizing an international scientific conference on the topic of religion and society in Europe in partnership with Al-Qadi Iyad University and the Bayan Center in Marrakech. Since 2024, the Ijtihad Center has intensified its activities both locally in Flanders and Belgium and at the European, Arabic, and Islamic levels. The results have been both impressive and expected, especially considering the lack of financial and logistical support. Among the center's most significant achievements as following: organizing 8 interactive online scientific symposia on Islam in European and Western contexts, including German, French, and Scandinavian contexts, with contributions of more than 30 experts and researchers. Next symposia will address other contexts as scheduled. Publishing 3 research booklets on scientific research techniques and the state of education in the Arabic world. Publishing a book in Arabic on the role of the Imam in the European context and the need for renewal in collaboration with Beit al-Hikmah Publishing in Morocco, participating in 2 international seminars, one in Morocco and one in Spain, taking part in 6 training courses in Morocco, Spain, and Belgium, launching a series of training workshops, of which today's workshop is a part, with more to follow in the near future. Perhaps the most significant milestone in the center's history is the launch of the Ijtihad Journal for Islamic and Arabic Studies in Europe, the first peer-reviewed academic journal that adopts an internal academic approach to Islam in Europe and the West. The journal is officially registered in Belgium and adheres to international academic standards in referring, research, and publication. The first and second issues have already been published, and preparations for the third issue are underway. In addition to these diverse range of activities, the center will soon announce an international scientific conference and launch specialized research units dedicated to various fields of knowledge. These units will focus on the study and publication of research papers addressing to Islam in Europe and the West. Finally, I would like to once again extend my heartfelt thanks for Professor Alexander Horstmann, and I wish you all a successful, enriching experience. Good luck and have fun.
Thank you, Professor Tijani, for setting the stage for our discussion. Now I encourage everyone to actively participate, share their thoughts, and keep their cameras on, please, to foster a dynamic and interactive discussion. Let's ensure this session is both informative and engaging for all of us. Now, without further ado, let's welcome our speaker, Professor Alexander Horstmann, who will introduce us to the core concept of our discussion today. Please, can you...
Yes,
Please,
hello.
everyone, can you keep your camera on? من فضلكم هل يمكن أن تشغلوا الكاميرا؟
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you, Professor Tijani, for your kind words, and it's a big honor to have this workshop with you, and to give this workshop, and also to join the activities of Ijtihad. And I'm really looking forward to the dialogue with everybody. And I would like to start with sharing my presentation with you. Okay, excellent. So can you see the presentation? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's great. One second. Okay, so building Noah's Ark, religion and homemaking in exile, a workshop for Ijtihad. All right. So this is the book, Building Noah's Ark for Migrants, Refugees, and Religious Communities. And as Professor Tijani just pointed out, it is actually not a new book, but it is very topical, unfortunately, because we live in very difficult times. And I want to summarize the content of the book for you. But first, I want to start with pointing out I'm an anthropologist, and I want to point out why anthropology matters. So anthropology's real contribution lies not in its literature, but in its capacity to transform lives. For what drives anthropologists in the final resort is not the demand for knowledge, but an ethic of care. We don't care for others by treating them as objects of investigation, by assigning them to categories and context, or by explaining them away. We care by bringing them into presence so that they can converse with us and we can learn from them. That's the way to build a world with room for everyone. We can only build it together. So I like to share also with you today, not only my book, but also my anthropological approach, yeah, to vote upon what I call vote anthropology, actually, and also the ethical premises that that underlie and support this approach. And I begin by actually a performance. I'm also, as Sarah is aware already, actually artistic director as well in performing arts. And I conducted a workshop for Burmese activists on performance and storytelling, workshop for change and peacemakers in January this year. And I had a performance, a workshop for 10 days with 20 Burmese activists on the meaning of home at the Joy House in Mesot, in the border town of Mesot on the Thailand-Myanmar border. And the second part puts the talisman actually into the center. And the talisman was often a religious object, yeah? So the participants, the Burmese democracy activists, yeah, they actually they presented the religious object as an object of comfort and protection, yeah. Without it was not my idea. I just introduced the idea of the talisman, and they brought a Buddha image for Buddhists believers, or a necklace with a silver cross for Christian believers, right? Yeah. And this reminded me of Thomas Tweed's work on religion as a theory of travel, and like the statue of the Virgin Maria from Cuba in Miami for the Cuban diaspora. Yeah, for the Cuban diaspora, it was very important to have the original image, the original statue of Virgin Maria from Cuba. Yeah, it could not be replaced by another statue. It had to be the authentic one, right? Yeah, and this again is an object of identification, of worship, and of comfort and solace. And I propose here a workshop on migrants, refugees, and religious communities, and the humanitarian management of the refugee crisis that we unfortunately attend. But instead of the many research works that take a top-down perspective, our workshop aims for a more holistic, bottom-up and ethnographic perspective, so anthropological perspective, on the religion's material and spiritual use in creating spaces for recreating cultural identities and homelands, and providing comfort, security, and protection in potentially hostile foreign environments. For this, we want to discuss several interesting case studies to study the travel and transformation of religion to new homelands, built on long-term ethnographic work, such as Tweed's path-breaking study, Crossing and Dwelling. We thus put the Migrants, Refugees Agency in the center of the discussion and look at their home and placemaking practices in their religious life votes, and how they use cultural resources and religious resources for sustaining in exile, recreating their religious and cultural votes, work with cultural and religious community leaders, represent themselves in public rituals, and reproduce religious practices for comfort, dignity, and self-esteem, or bodily performance and rituals. Starting with the concept of religion as a compass for orientation in hostile environments, we are interested in the transnational connection, the connection to the sources, and the transformation of the religious expression in the new homeland. Right? And so the theory that I was very inspired for writing Building Noah's Ark is Thomas Tweed's Crossing and Dwelling. And Tweed's notion of religion as an itinerary and a compass for people's cross-boundary mobility was highly inspirational for writing this paper. Religions are confluences of organic cultural flows that intensify joy and confront suffering by drawing on human and superhuman forces to make homes and cross boundaries. Tweed sees religion as serving as a compass that encompasses the past, present, and future, including the afterlife, and as an itinerary, this is a very important word, an itinerary to position women and men in natural terrain and social space, and enable and constrain terrestrial, corporeal, so bodily, and cosmic crossings. From this angle, religious practice, religioning, can be liberating in looking at religion not only as a tool of existential struggle, but also as a vehicle of agency, meaning-making, border crossing, and homemaking. It can be understood that religion is a political project and political aspiration reaching out in a transnational context and space. Yeah, so it's very important that religion also gives its perspective on migrants and refugees as not as a category, but as really as human beings, as agents, also agents of change. And indeed, some of the migrants actually are able to make careers, yeah, in religious organizations, and are able also to participate in, to join and participate in, take comfort and solace and protection with the engagement with churches, mosques, and temples, and also sometimes are able to mold them and to have position themselves in them. So I like to see these communities as communities of practice. And communities of practice, this term comes actually from Kleinman at Harvard University, and he's a specialist of medical anthropology. And he sees these communities of practice as cohesive social support networks that strive around topics of social suffering. Yeah, so people like the democracy activists that I was working in Method in this January, right? They were suffering actually from persecution, political persecution, yeah, and sometimes they even lost family members, yeah. And when they arrived actually in Method, it's also a very hostile environment for them because they arrive as undocumented migrants, right? And the first thing they would do is actually they would join a migrant church. Yeah, if they're Christians, they join a Christian church, evangelical church, and they use also the infrastructure. And there we come to the very key, to the center, to the focus of this discussion, if you like. Yeah, they use the infrastructure of the migrant church and its network, right? And the infrastructure of this migrant church connects actually to the center, to the church in Myanmar, right? Yeah, to the church network in Myanmar and its history, actually, its local history. Yeah, and through resettlement, we also have, say, Christians like Karen or Kachin or Chin, etc., all the minorities from Myanmar, being resettled actually, or applying for resettlement and then being resettled by UNHCR and IOM, right, to, for example, the United States, to the West, right? And then the Karen, they join actually the established churches in the US, right, and connect to their original churches, their home bases in Karen state, Kachin state, in Myanmar. Yeah. So we have this transnational connections coming up, and transnational social support networks, prayer networks, etc. Yeah. So the social support networks is very important. So this is the meaning of communities of practice. The religious networks have a brokerage translation function, yeah, that set avenues along transnational networks that are available for members. Participants benefit from resources and travel on religious routes, yeah. So these routes are not just ordinary routes, but are religious routes, right, that people travel, and using critical local infrastructure, offering shelter, protection, education opportunities, facilitating documentation, and creating jobs. Yeah. So all these important, so this is actually all these things like shelter, protection, education opportunities, documentation, so residency titles and jobs are of course all crucial, right, for migrants, right, to actually survive and to reestablish themselves in exile. Yeah. Right. And I think that the role of religion here has been underestimated, actually. I see there are more participants coming in. That's great. So, okay. Oops. No, I can't go on. Yeah, very good. Religion during migration. Local humanitarian and religious organizations provide important infrastructure, as I pointed out already, orientation and comfort, as well as social support structures before, during, and after the migratory journey. Transnational connections provide a sort of cosmopolitan orientation and international context. So I summarize here a little bit. Religion provides an explanation also, yeah, for the migratory journey and for the suffering involved. Yeah. Why do we suffer? Why do we have to suffer? So this also gives an explanation. Yeah. For example, the Karen are talking about God's hidden plan, actually. Yeah. So religious sites provide comfort and solace in hostile environments characterized by insecurity, police harassment, and structural violence. So this is, I call, the local infrapolitics. And this also, I turn now to my work on religion and humanitarian assistance. So I argue that local infrastructure is key to efficient humanitarian assistance as well. Local is meaning that it extends over a certain stretch of specified territory with demarcated religious boundaries. Yeah, right. For example, in Myanmar, even in Myanmar, we have different spheres of religion. Yeah, we have Buddhism as a dominant religious sphere, of course. Yeah, Theravada Buddhism, but we also have Christianity. Yeah, a long history of Christianization of the minorities, and we have Islam as well. Right, we have Islam as well. So, and the Islamic sphere. Even in the capital of Myanmar, Yangon. So Local infrastructure is closely associated with the churches and church organizational structures as well. Yeah. And culture is the most important resource. Sharing of the same cultural values, identity, and languages leads to trust. Yeah. So actually, it's very interesting that, you know, international humanitarian organizations find themselves in a dilemma because they cannot access the most vulnerable people. Yeah. And it is actually the local, often faith-based organizations, yeah, that actually, because they work within this, as I said, a stretch of territory with religious boundaries, and they speak the language and so on, they share the culture and religion, that the recipients of the humanitarian assistance are able to trust them, and that actually humanitarian aid can be delivered efficiently using this, making use of this infrastructure. Yeah. And in Myanmar, but also we can compare, for example, to Syria, right? And the civil war in Syria, we can very well compare that actually. In Syria too, the international organizations were not able to help the victims of the, you know, to elevate social suffering, and it was the local organizations that helped most efficiently. And in Myanmar, we can say that in Karen and Kachin state, for example, that 90% of the aid that actually arrives, yeah, in the villages comes from and is delivered by local organizations, yeah, by local organizations. So international humanitarian organizations still play an important role in supporting local organizations, yeah, but it is the local organizations that actually successfully are able to deliver food and medicine to the victims of civil war. So high cohesion professional organization with ethnic art organization and civil society is another asset. And local church organizations are part of the local governance structures, indeed. Yeah. So they are part of the local governance structures in the absence of the state. Yeah. So they operate, church organizations here operate as a quasi-state, replacing with meager resources the missing state. Yeah. Of course, these local organizations are also underfunded, but still they are important material on the material side and on the spiritual side. Okay, so now I turn to anthropology again, and to world anthropology and epistemologies, Western and non-Western epistemologies. So I turn to Eduardo Restrepo and Arturo Escobar, who stated that other anthropologies, anthropology otherwise, on the contrary, suggests that the space in which anthropology is practiced is fractured, perhaps even more so today than in the past. And despite increasing normalizing tendencies worldwide, making it into a plural space. In other words, rather than assuming that there is a privileged position from which a real anthropology can be produced and in relation to which all other anthropologies would define themselves, world anthropology seeks to take seriously the multiple and contradictory historical, social, cultural, and political locatedness of the different communities of anthropologists and their anthropologies. Yeah. So there is not only one, to put it crudely, there's not only one anthropology, one American Western anthropology, but there are many anthropologies. Dominant anthropologies, on the other hand, operate like normalizing machines that preclude the enablement of different anthropologic practices and knowledge worldwide, to the extent that dominant anthropologies operate from a paradigmatic and privileged epistemological position. They constitute apparatuses of erasure of difference and effect a given inscription of difference in the name of anthropological canons. For example, European authors working on Myanmar cite another European author but ignore the many Burmese authors, because Burmese authors do not publish in American ethnologists and not in English. So in this sense, your journal, for example, at Ijtihad Center, right, Ijtihad Journal, takes a very important place. So I also like to point out here Ubuntu, which is a concept from South Africa, actually, which I think suits here very well. So Ubuntu is celebrating life. I am because you are. Living anthropologically means documenting history, interconnection, and power in a time of transformation and crisis. We need to care for others as we attempt to build a world together. This means especially overcoming the rifts that have tended to divide generations. Generation Z, this generation from 1625 in Myanmar, has incorporated Ubuntu in the democracy movement in Thailand and in the alliance with Hong Kong. Ubuntu means to celebrate humanity, to stress mutuality and conviviality. Ubuntu was revitalized in a critical time for redress, restorative justice, forgiveness, and healing. Yeah, it was actually introduced to overcome apartheid in South Africa. Yeah, so here you see a picture of my solidarity with my NGO, German Solidarity with Myanmar Democracy. I'm a co-founder of this NGO, Solidarity with Democracy movement in Myanmar and Germany. And the Myanmar, the small, relatively small community, Myanmar community in Germany, and the democracy, another picture of the democracy movement in Shan State, very colorful, as you can see. And I argue that the vote anthropology does not see neutrality as desirable. In participatory action research, the interlocutors not only give permission for the research, but is involved in the design of the research from the start. In PAR, the researcher is committed to the communities he works with. The researcher expresses the commitment by contributing to social justice. PAR is quite different from participant observation. Engaged anthropology means that the researcher emphatically endorses the communities and their life forms. Participant observation, if not handled with cultural sensitivity, can even be a burden or exploitative, especially about the use of the ethnographic data that are not returned to research subjects. So these are the characteristics of world anthropology. World anthropology is primarily interested in developing non-Western, community-centered, and gender-sensitive concepts. A world anthropology explores non-Western epistemologies by employing world ethnography with communities on the move. A world anthropology is not limited to participant observation or thick description, but includes commitment, empathy, and social intervention. Ethnography creates a climate of togetherness. A world anthropology includes local and international ethnography spanning continents. For studying mobility, both temporal and spatial aspects are crucial. A world anthropology applies anthropological concepts and ethnographic methods to the real world and use them to contribute to eco-peace systems. A world anthropology is attentive to and encouraging of local knowledge and the expertise of the local community in the stake of fortifying local communities. Okay, so far, so what I've done now is to summarize the approach of building Noah's Ark on migration and religion, and also embedding it into a framework of vote anthropology and the ethical standards underlying this approach. Maybe you have already questions or comments. A question or comments from the audience are very welcome. I'm also very interested to have a lively discussion with you. Before I continue with the case studies. Do we have questions or comments so far?
هل هناك من لديه أي تعليق؟ الحضور الكرام،
Is this all clear, or are there questions of understanding? Because not everybody comes from a background of anthropology, but rather Islamic studies. Okay, this is not the case.
سوري الكسندر، الحضور الكريم، لأن الهدف من هذه الدورة هي ورشة workshop. ورشة يعني كأنك تتلقى درسا. هذا هو يقدم تجربة اللي هي غنية، ونحن قمنا بالمستحيل حتى أنه يحضر معنا، فهذا جهد ليس بالسهل أنك تقنع بروفيسور على مستواه أن يأتيك ويحضر معك تطوعا دون أن ندفع له شيئا. لذلك اغتنموا هذه الفرصة واطرحوا الأسئلة. إن لم تفهموا شيئا اطرحوا الأسئلة أو ملاحظة أو ما إلى ذلك، حتى نستمر في مثل هذه الدورات التكوينية هي المكلفة في الحقيقة. إذا لم يكن في تفاعل فنحن سوف نضطر ربما إلى عدم تنظيم مثل هذه الورشات. شكرا. سوري ألكسندر.
Yeah, maybe it's nice it's very nice. Thank you, Professor Tijani, for also translating some of it, some of the contents into Arabic language.
Could I intervene, Dr.
Yes,
Alexander?
please. Yes.
This is Professor Mimoun Daoudi from University of Sidi Mohammed bin Abdullah, Fez, Morocco. Interested in cultural studies, religious studies, and diaspora studies, of course. I've been involved in research projects regarding narratives of Moroccan diasporic writers. This experience is very inspiring, and I'd like to express my gratitude to Professor Tijani for making or for providing space for us to interact, and I'd like to express my gratitude to you for this very inspiring presentation. And the experience you are projecting is very interesting with regard to anthropology and religion. And just briefly, just wanted to elaborate on the idea of religion as a political project, because when you're delivering your presentation, my mind is trying to compare your experience to the other experience, I mean, Moroccans and by extension Muslims in Europe, Muslim communities in Europe, and the idea of community building and political project of these communities. Could you please elaborate on this idea of religion being a political project? And thank you so much.
Right, thank you so much too. Often migrants and refugees also escape from political persecution, right? And are actually suffering from discrimination. And the case studies that I will continue will demonstrate this very clearly. So we have the case study of the Rohingya from Myanmar, also Muslims, and we have the case study who are actually suffering from very severe persecution. They are stateless people. Yeah, they are actually stateless people. They have no rights whatsoever in Myanmar. Yeah, and there have been a genocide against Rohingya people in 2016, and especially 17, and with nearly 800,000 people, but maybe now there's a new wave of refugees now. So maybe just under 1 million people fleeing for their lives to Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, and Kudu Palong, a refugee camp, which here you see as the next slide, and to Bangladesh. So the majority of refugees, because Bangladesh is very close to Rakhine State in Myanmar, and they're fleeing to a Muslim country because they hope that actually they can enjoy or benefit from solidarity, from Muslim solidarity, right? And using religious networks, especially also using, of course, mosques as centers of community and learning, Islamic learning, and worship, but also madrasa and also private religious teaching. So in exile, not only in you find Rohingya, of course, not only in Bangladesh, but also in many other countries, mainly Muslim countries, actually, especially South Asia, but also Saudi Arabia. And I will also talk about the Rohingya community in Malaysia and Indonesia, right? And there's some solidarity forthcoming, yeah, but actually much of the hope of the Rohingya in Malaysia, for example, has been disappointed, yeah, disappointed. Still, the Rohingya also in Malaysia also face a lot of harassment and often deportation, actually. Yeah. But there's some solidarity forthcoming from also faith-based organizations, especially community-based organizations that support, for example, Rohingya learning in migrant learning centers, yeah, that are sponsored actually by these community-based organizations, for example, yeah. And that's very interesting. So I'm very interested in these projects. And so there is now a Rohingya diaspora, also in the United States, even in the United States, so also in the West. And they, of course, have their own political project. Yeah, and their political project is of course uplifting the Rohingya, right? Is for the well-being of the Rohingya people. Yeah, and they use the relative safety, security of course, people in Bangladesh also face a lot of hardships. Yeah, but they use a relative say people who have the opportunity actually to enroll into college, into university education, right? So like some of the community leaders of the Rohingya, I actually personally met, yeah, who, for example, the founder of Women Peace Networks, in the United States. So they have a project. They use their privileged position then to advocate for the Rohingya people, yeah, and quite successfully so, right? So that results, this lobbying results in the vote having more attention for a war that and for a crime that actually there's a risk of being neglected, of being forgotten, in the face of other conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, right? For example. So this is what I mean by political project, actually. Yeah. And the same for the Yazidi people. So I will go on now, actually, also with the case studies. The same for the Yazidi people. Germany has become actually the main host country for the Yazidi diaspora. The Yazidi from Shingar, from northern Iraq, yeah, they actually suffered from the genocide in 2014 by the Islamic State forces, right? The Islamic State, and so they killed many hundred people, and enslaved women, actually, and committed terrible crimes of sexualized violence against these women. And many of these women have been, after the retreat of the Islamic State, many of these women have been, Yazidi women have been highly traumatized, of course. And this traumatization has actually threatened the continuity of the Yazidi as a people, as a community. And there was the big question was coming up about the reintegration of these women into the Yazidi community. And you have to know that the Yazidi community, as other communities like the Rohingya community, is very conservative also when it comes also to the topic of sexuality and marriage and so forth. And so there have been actually a ritual led by the Yazidi religious leaders in Lalish, in northern in Shingal, in northern Iraq, in Kurdistan, in northern Iraq, to reintegrate, to re-welcome the women, the Yazidi women, into the community. That was not possible without the authority of the Yazidi religious leaders. Yeah. So the religious leaders, Yazidi religion is, you can say, the condition is conditional, yeah, to the continuity of the Yazidi people, yeah, as a people in exile. So the Yazidi people also, of course, in Germany, they don't have Yazidi temples in Germany, yeah. But they have the old Yazidi temples are, of course, in Iraq, and actually in other places too, in Turkey, you also find Yazidi diaspora in Armenia and in Georgia, right? And you have Yazidi University in Georgia, and you have Yazidi temples there. In Germany, you don't have Yazidi temples, but you have cultural centers for the Yazidi people, so they can carry out their rituals of the New Year ritual. They can the marriages and funerals according to Yazidi religion and Yazidi law, which is also religious law, right? Yeah. So in this sense, I'm talking about a political project. Is that a satisfying answer to your question?
Yes, there's two questions. The first one is Jawad Nashid is asking how can religious space from different faiths contribute to shaping a shared identity and integrating migrants? Is clear?
No. Say it again.
How can religious spaces like
Religious
mosques,
spaces
yes, from different faiths contribute to shaping
from different
religious
religions?
Yeah,
Yes.
can contribute to shaping a shared identity
A shared
and
identity.
integrating migrants.
Integrating migrants.
Yes.
I see. So the question is about the togetherness, right, of different
Yes.
religions, for example,
Yeah.
Christianity and Islam, yeah?
Yeah.
I see. For integrating migrants. Yeah. Well, this is a very interesting question. I have in my fieldwork, I have a lot of examples where different or representatives of different religions, for example, Buddhism and Christianity, come together in solidarity, right? In solidarity, and they have the common enemy in a way. They have the military junta in Yangon. In Europe, you have the example of church asylum. This is very interesting. And I myself, I personally, for example, in Bielefeld, I engage into church asylum. That means there are migrants from, for example, Muslims from Syria, yeah, who are actually in a limbo, who are living in a situation of limbo, meaning that there's a risk of them of being deported, yeah, by the German government, and they want to stay. They want to stay by all means, right? They want to stay in Germany. And they applied for asylum, but maybe their, application has been rejected or something like that. And or they are tolerated in German, geduldet, and in German language, tolerated, and which means that they can be deported any day, right? So they have to wait for further decisions, and for that, in that time, that critical, very difficult time, the church actually offers asylum to them, meaning a place to stay, also, yeah, a safe house, like a safe house. So church asylum is actually a very interesting tradition because, excuse me, because church asylum is going back a long way in history. Yeah, it has been also provided for the Huguenots, yeah, from France, who have been persecuted by the Catholic Church at the time. In France, so it goes back a long history and is still practiced today. Yeah, so it's a very interesting interreligious, intercultural practice of offering actually Christian church asylum to Muslim migrants. Yeah. I hope that this answers your question.
Thank you. Well, I have a question.
Yes.
What do you think are the long-term prospects for rebuilding? No, based on your work with Rohingya and Yazidi communities, what do you think are the long-term prospects for rebuilding religious and communal life in exile?
Yeah, this is a big question, Sarah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my point is that that people need religion, right? They need religion, and it's part of their, yeah, of course, it's part of their universe, so to speak, and so yeah, and so religion becomes very important, not only for the material resources that people can use, like the infrastructure, as I pointed out, but especially spiritually, and especially for people who suffer from trauma, right? Religion has a special meaning, I believe. Yeah. So even trauma therapy, right, should also include actually religion, and I believe, and religious experts. And the example of the Yazidi ritual of reintegrating women into Yazidi society is I think a very telling one. Yeah. All right.
I have
Hello. Yes.
okay. Thank you for your for this occasions. And okay.
Please, I still have a question if you don't mind.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So my name is Hassan Ait Nasser. I am a doctoral student at Ibn Tufayl University.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Professor. Thank you very much for your efforts to make this presentation very insightful. I just have a question regarding the extent to which Western regimes in general welcome the idea of founding organizations which value non-Western constituents, including Muslim minorities, migrants in general, and refugees too. Thank you very much for your response in advance.
Say it again. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, to what extent Western regimes welcome the idea of founding organizations, official organizations, which value and appreciate the non-Western constituents, including Muslim minorities in general, migrants and refugees in particular.
I see. Well, you see, now we face actually a very difficult moment, right? I believe, because we have a lot of hostility developing towards refugees and Muslims in particular, right? And there are lots of prejudices and stereotypes around that are also kind of instigated by politicians, especially of the far right, right? But also by, for example, the American president, right? So we face very, very difficult times, I would say, unfortunately. So I'm not very optimistic there, but I believe that I'm also a member of civil. I'm not only teaching at the university, but I'm also a member of civil society. And I think that in civil society we have to, I made the case also for. Oh, now I can see you. I think also that's nice. I think we can. I made the case also for Western and non-Western anthropology, right? So I call vote anthropology, right? Yeah, and I think it is time to overcome the domination of the colonizing kind of approach of only dominant and of only one dominant anthropology, right? So and to have more voices and especially to have more phonic voices, right? A pluriphonic dialogue. And for this, to achieve this, I think my only hope is really into civil society, and that we have to build bridges also between university, ideally, between university and civil society, and we have to resist this kind of tendencies that I described, right? Which are very discriminating and racist, so we have to overcome these racisms. I think that here also interreligious dialogue is very important, right? To achieve this, interreligious dialogue is very important. But most important is activities that introduce actually the communities to each other also, yeah, and invite each other, to for example festivals, also religious, festivals, to have open doors. For example, in Germany, we have the day of the open day of all mosques. So all mosques will be open for everybody, right? And Germans are able to visit the mosques and to be introduced to Islam by the Imam, right? And to the rich culture of, for example, Sufism and Muslim brotherhoods and so forth. So that also support individual mosques. So yeah, so that would be my answer to your question. And thank you for the question.
Thank you, Professor Alex.
Yes, and can I just continue?
Thank you
then,
very much for your response.
Yes.
So then I just continue with the case studies, and I try to make it short so we can have more time for discussion. So we have here a picture on the memory on the violent expulsion from Myanmar of the Rohingya people to Bangladesh and to the refugee camp there. And as you can see, these camps are completely overcrowded and the conditions are quite miserable. And then I have a wonderful video on again on a performance. So as you can see, I'm very interested in performing arts, and it's called I'm Rohingya. It's a wonderful performance, but it will take some time. So maybe I just continue first. And if we have time, we can play a little bit of the performance if you like. And then we have Rohingya people fleeing to Malaysia, and they also live in limbo because being stateless, Rohingya children have no access to formal education in Malaysia. But nevertheless, Rohingya people organize in and find comfort in Rohingya tafis and madrasa, as well as private religious schooling in camps and migrant learning centers supported by community-based organizations. And here, Zakat, for example, also plays a role, like in charity. Yes. And then much of my work actually has been on the Karen people, the Karen minority from southeastern Myanmar. And as I said, they had to also escape to Thailand and to the refugee camps in northwestern Thailand. And most of the Karen are actually Buddhists, of Buddhist faith, but also there's a very strong Christian minority, like 30%. And here I want to show you a picture of Karen baptism in Mela Maluang camp. So this is a Baptist ritual, yeah, in the refugee camp. And you can see it's very impressive. So it's a very important day. 500 people have been baptized, some children, but also adults, in the river here, flowing here in the camp, in the refugee camp. Yeah. So this ritual has been allowed, permitted by the Thai camp authority. So the permission has been granted long time ago. And you have missionaries also. You have Christian missionaries from the United States, from Japan, and from all over the place joining this ritual here in the refugee camp. I think it's a very interesting picture. And here you have a picture of Stateless Children Day in Mesa Liang, and you have also prayer networks. And you have, so you have Mela refugee camp here in northwestern Thailand, a picture where you can see the camp made up of the same materials as original villages in Myanmar, maybe mainly bamboo. Bamboo is used here as a main material for the houses, yeah. And you have also communities taking their pastor with them, yeah, to the camp, so that the pastor can actually, yeah, the pastor may not be personally persecuted, although the Karen are also persecuted as a people, but the pastor is coming to the joining people, the community in the refugee camp, because the people as a community cannot function without a pastor and without a church. So you have actually 54 churches in Mela refugee camp. Okay, and then you have the Yazidi people in Kurdistan, Turkey, northern Iraq, and northern Syria, living there in these places: Kurdistan, Turkey, northern Iraq, and northern Syria. And the Yazidi have inhabited the mountains of northwestern Iraq for centuries, and the region is home to their holy places, shrines, and ancestral villages. And Yazidi religion is actually not well known, yeah, but it is one of the oldest religions actually. And the Yazidi are concentrated in areas north of Mosul and in the Kurdish-controlled province of Dohuk. For Yazidi, the land holds deep religious significance. Adherents from all over the world, remnant communities exist in Turkey, Germany, and elsewhere, make pilgrimages back to the holy Iraqi city and holy temples of Lalish. And so, because of religion also, migration is not only one way, but it's actually circular, right? Also back to the place, to the holy places, right? To the holy temples of Lalish. And here you can see a picture of a Yazidi temple. It's actually a very interesting religion. I encourage you also to study it. It's actually, it has also, Yazidi religion has a very difficult relationship with Islam, has a very difficult relationship with Islam. Also Yazidi and Muslims are also neighbors actually in northwestern, here in this region of northern Iraq. There are also some Sufi actually origins in the history of Yazidi religion. It's very interesting. And Yazidis began actually to face accusations of devil worship from Muslims beginning in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. And organized anti-Yazidi violence dates to the Ottoman Empire. Yeah, and so there have been terrible persecutions of the Yazidi people, and migrations to Armenia actually and Georgia at that time. And on the 3rd of August 2014, there was this terrible massacre of the Yazidi by the Islamic State forces. And tens of thousands of Yazidi people escaped to the rugged mountains without water and food. And I was actually, I was invited as a trainer of peace education to the Shingal community, and I gave a course, a seminar, to 100 Yazidi school teachers who returned actually from the Yazidi refugee camps to Shingal, to their original homes. And they are now rebuilding their homes and their schools. And it was a very good opportunity for me to get to know Yazidi culture and Yazidi religion. Yeah. Okay. So here I write what happened, right? To the Yazidi people, the fate and their fate. And here you have a picture, a very, very telling picture of graveyards, actually. And then the dead are actually, the victims of the massacre are being identified so that their name could be, that they could be reburied, and that their names could be again associated with them, with the dead bodies. Yeah. So the Yazidis still have not recovered from genocide, but Actually, there's one very very important person here in Germany. His name is Jan Ilhan Kieselhan. He's a professor in Stuttgart, actually, in Baden-Württemberg, and he's also a trauma therapist. And he and his team have helped treated more than 100 Yazidi women suffering from very severe trauma in Germany. Yeah, that I wanted to mention this also, this detail. And probably I give here the figure of 150,000, but probably now 200,000 Yazidi people are living in Germany today. Yeah. Okay. And I come to my conclusion that world anthropology differs from global anthropology in that the global anthropology only studies transnational or global networks, while a world anthropology encompasses people in various places, including the diaspora, relating to violent displacement and refugee communities in the one world. A world anthropology hence integrates both anthropological fieldwork and the implication in peacebuilding education and training. The inclusion of the communities we work with starts with a research design and becomes meaningful by creating togetherness and a commitment using participatory action research, as I introduced before. And lastly, finally, I want to mention modernity versus coloniality. Coloniality will be defined as the subalternization of knowledge and culture of oppressed and excluded groups that necessarily accompany colonialism and which continues today with globalization, is seen as constitutive of modernity. There's no modernity without coloniality, so that the proper unit of analysis is not modernity, as in all intra-European analysis of modernity, but modernity coloniality, or the modern colonial world system that we now find ourselves into. Yeah. Thank you very much for your kind attention. So now we can again enter into a discussion. And I will stop the presentation so we can see each other.
Can you turn the camera on, please? All of you, please. هل يمكن أن تشغلوا الكاميرات من فضلكم؟
Okay.
Thank you so much, Alexander, for your valuable workshop. سارة ربما لم يفهموا، لأن أعتقد أنهم يغلقون الكاميرات. لا، نحن نقصد فتح الكاميرات، لأن هذا كان من الشرط الذي وضعه البروفيسور ألكسندر، أنه ينبغي فتح الكاميرات حتى يكون تفاعل، لأن هذا لقاء تفاعلي وسوف يسمع إليكم، لأن هذا درس. لذلك فنطلب منكم أن تفتحوا الكاميرات. شكرا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام أستاذ البشير.
السلام ورحمة الله. May I say a few words?
Yes, please.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Professor Alexander, for your uplifting and overwhelming introduction and
Thank you.
presentation. My name is Al-Bashir Kasmi. I'm a doctorate student at the University of Bielefeld in Ijtihad, Morocco. And I'm also an immigrant or a migrant. I live in the United States of America. So I
Nice.
wanted to share with you what I am at now, if you don't mind. And after your, so I am in an Eid al-Fitr celebration now, outside, you know. So let me show
Right.
you. Can I show you?
Yes, please.
All right, this is where we, okay, let me just see where am I. So, let me take the filter off. Round effect. So as you can see behind me, let me just turn the camera. We have Eid al-Fitr celebration here as you know, minority in America. So this is actually my input in your to your presentation. This is the Islamic Center here. You see,
Yes,
the Islamic
yes.
Center, as you can see.
Yeah.
So this is the Islamic Center. I'm going to show you the name of the Islamic Center, and it's on the plain road. It's in the main road. Okay.
Right.
As Muslims in America, we are living honestly, you know, with all the things that are in the media. Can you see here Islamic Center of Smithfield?
Yes. Very nice. I like to visit.
So, yes, sir. You're welcome anytime. Anytime. So this is the Islamic here. I just want Islamic Center of Smithfield. This is where the people. So this is the masjid. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is it's in, you know, as it says, in the main road. The Muslims here in America are practicing their religious, you know, rights in full. We thank God for that. You know.
Yes.
Right. So this is the parking lot. People are getting ready for the festival, the Eid festival. All right, and this is me. So thank you so much for your input. I love it so much, and also I'm gonna go back to it. They didn't have that full time of following, but I was there hearing and listening to the great information that you give us. But I just wanted to add, and my research is about the Muslim family and its role for the stability of the society of minorities in America. So one of the things that I found out that with no discrimination or no racism, all the communities here, either Jewish, or Christian, or Muslim, they are practicing their religion, their religious rights freely, with no problems, and no. And I'm sorry, I'm talking about from my point of view as an imam, and as a religious leader here, as a preach, an Islamic study teacher. So from the middle of the experience, we are having great, you know, time here, raising our kids as Muslims, living our lives as Muslim, living in our houses as Muslim. There is nothing wrong with us. There are some incidents here and there. Whatever Trump is trying to do, he's not going to be able to do so. You know, I just want to let you know that yesterday, and I heard your words saying that you're not optimistic about what's going on here in America. You're right. We are not optimistic about what's going on. But the thing about America is, especially in North America, like the United States of America, it's a strong country with a strong constitution. And one of the rights, the 10 built-in rights, is the freedom of religion. So
That's
none
right.
of all of this, you know, George Bush tried that before. And then we had no problem with Obama, no problem with the Biden. And Trump, he even said in one of the interviews when the CNN, I'm sorry to mention the channel, but, you know, he asked him, what do you think the Islam vision towards us? And he says word by word, I'm going to quote it as Trump said it. He said, I think Islam hates us. All right. And the funny thing about Trump, that all his investment and all the money that he's making, most of it, like 75% of it, it's from the Arab world and the Muslim countries. So this is the funny thing about him. So I can assure you that he's just, and I'm sorry to use the word, he's a big, high speaker, big, loud mouth. He's not going to do anything because the country is built on laws that respect religious or any religious. Even the Yazidis you mentioned, the Buddhists, the Muslims, any kind of religion. Even people who are worshiping cats and dogs and stuff, they are respected here in America. So,
okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir, and have a good night. And for all the audience, thank you so much for everybody, and thank you to the Ijtihad Center, to Mr. Tijani Balawari. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Other people who want to join?
هل هناك من لديه أي سؤال؟
Otherwise, we can. Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
يمكنكم أن تشاركوا الأستاذ بأي سؤال عندكم.
I have a question to Professor Alexander.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the last explanation you gave us. The difference between global anthropology and world anthropology, and the idea of modernity coloniality. Could you please elaborate more on these two terms, because you joined modernity to coloniality?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So I think what is taking place in a way in academia too, I mean in the real world, of course, but also in academia, is a silencing of the other anthropologies. Yeah. And especially the silencing of the anthropologies in the global south, including Morocco, right? So, or Myanmar. So these voices are being silenced because the universities don't have the same resources often. They don't have the same resources, and the associations are not that powerful, like the American Anthropological Association, and the journals are, as I said, it's mostly that Western authors, they cite other Western colleagues. Even they work on a country like Myanmar or Morocco, you see, and that's a problem. So that's one thing. So we have to resist this by strengthening the World Anthropological Association, yeah, and we have to build very strong social support networks among ourselves, right? Yeah, between the West and the non-West, and this will actually facilitate understanding between the two. Yes, and of course, so this of course this leads also to migration in the first place, right? This is one of the reasons that leads to migration in the first place, especially forced migration, which is not that is all migration that is not voluntary, right? So in this sense, I believe that there's a continuity. Even we have a process also of decolonization, of course, taking place, right? And we have now a lot of important discussions in anthropology and other disciplines about decolonizing knowledge, right? And that is that is a argument that I wanted to put forward today in relation to my work on migration and religion. I wanted to contextualize it. So that decolonizing knowledge is very important, and it needs to be practiced. So yeah, it's not enough just to talk about it, but it needs to be practiced as well. So one of the important practices is, of course, my relationship with my informants as an academic also, right? So I found, for example, a wonderful new methodology with the performing arts. With the performing arts, I'm able to create a wonderful togetherness with the community. Yeah, and I now cooperate with many performing groups in Thailand and Myanmar, and maybe in the future in Morocco. I don't know. Would be very nice. Yeah, and to partner with them and to have collaborations with them and even productions with them. So theatrical productions. So this is very, very nice because it allows me to have a completely different relationship with my informants, so to speak, because it's a togetherness where we have a very meaningful experience. We share a very meaningful experience together, and with the performance, also with arts, we can also show something that sometimes we are not able to show only with language, with text. For this, actually,
yeah, this is very interesting. When
thank you.
As implementation of this project in terms of performance
Right.
studies, and
Right.
this is what I am really doing for in my project, or in the previous project I have been involved
really,
in,
that's great.
Literature, which is writing, which is narratives, which Moroccan writers in Europe
Right.
and America. So these writers are trying to
Right.
negotiate the belongingness and identity in the Western
Right.
studies, how they produce knowledge from the point of departure, which is their own identity, their own culture. So using the language of the Westerners, like English, like French, German, Dutch. So art, as you said, is very meaningful in this project, as trying to unifying this the ununified or the separated elements in this migrant space. Now you know that this migrant experience is replete with issues, not just religious issues, but language issues, cultural issues. Now you know that Europe now is living problems with those migrants experiencing their or practicing their local cultures.
Right.
So performance is very important. Writing, literature, poetry, whatever, is very important in bringing a bridge with cultures and civilizations.
Civilizations, right.
Yeah.
Right, and so you give actually these writers a voice, right? And this is very it's very nice, you see. And I think we need more of this kind of collaborations with artists, actually, and with poetry and with writers, novelists, and so forth.
Yeah.
So because they are very important stories, and I just met on Friday, last Friday, I met actually a very famous Vietnamese writer, and she was reciting her poems for us. She's the author of Das Child, and it's about the traumatic experience of the Vietnam War. And she was reciting her poems for us, and then she was beginning to sing for us, you know. And the same when I gave my training in for these Yazidi people, Yazidi school teachers. They were also musicians in the room, you know, and they begin to sing also, and then everybody joined. Yeah, everybody joined, and it was such a beautiful atmosphere suddenly, yeah, in the room.
Yeah.
And really lovely. And and I felt really, you know, I'm just visiting, I'm just a guest, right? I'm a guest, a German guest to the Yazidi community in Shingal. And what have I, like, I was their trainer, but what is my right to I mean, how should I say, to intervene, right? What is my role of intervention here? To intervene into their social space, which is a very fragile one. I have to be very careful not to trigger any traumas and painful memories. But we had such a good atmosphere in the room, so it was not important anymore, you know, what kind of religion we have, where we are born, which place we are born, you know, because this was really Ubuntu. We created this kind of togetherness. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think art is able to create this kind of togetherness.
Yeah, sure. It unifies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is really the meaning of Ubuntu, of connection.
Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I can me.
Yes, as well. Yes, so that as well.
Okay, thank you. I said that I have two ideas about a historical. You know that in Greece that thousands of Greece or Spain or North Africa and
Sure.
the Muslims are rescued or saved to protect the Jewish people escaping from Nazi systems.
Oh, I
And
see. I see.
Yeah. In Greece, I have
That's very interesting.
case.
That's very
Yes,
interesting.
but in Greece, when the Nazis system
Sure.
asks if you have an Jewish, they say no. They are we are just a Muslims people here in our home, and this why the rescue thousands of Jewish people and Spanish and we had another example with Moriscos when in Spanish Andalusia,
Yes, yes.
yes, we call the Moriscan that refugees or Muslims refugees in North Africa and the rescues with rescue from and escaped from the I don't know what's the system in Andalusia in Spain. So this now I can say with my experience in situations and organization with women in Belgium, and we have the many of women's refugees or
yes, yes.
and they have in this situation and the crisis and the escape the crisis or war or that we have this humanity relationship humanitarian together we can help together we can without asking from where or the religions or the identity or it just she is a woman she asked for help and she
Yes.
have she can have in without any without no thanks to help and we help them because it's human it's our sister human and this way and thank you.
That's a very good example for my case, right? Muslims protecting Jews during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
That's very, very. I think that's a very good example because today we think that there can be no like no friendship almost, yeah, between Muslims and Jews.
Can I
Right.
can I
Yes,
add
please.
an example?
Yes, please.
One Vichy asked King Morocco Hassan to ask him for the Jewish people, and the answer of the king is I have no Jewish, I have no Muslim, and I have no Christian. I have just Morocco in Morocco. Yes. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I mean, in Morocco too, right? I understand that in the bazaar, Muslims were actually coexisting very peaceful with Jewish and Christian also residents, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, until then political things turned sour also, and many Jews decided to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We have the earthquake, this earthquake in house, and house. They have the Jewish and the Muslim and I don't say if your religions. We say just we are Moroccan. This in Morocco we don't say that. Yeah.
You don't identify yourself by religion,
No.
but as a Moroccan identity,
It's
right?
it's Moroccan. It's just a Moroccan. And
Moroccan,
America he defend.
Yeah,
yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a community.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for contributing.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Are there more questions or comments, contributions?
Yes, Sarah. We don't have any question. We end meeting.
Yes.
Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sarah, the floor is for you. You are the moderator. Yes, Sarah.
So we have to
to end the workshop.
Yes.
As we come at the end of this enriching workshop,
Yes.
let's take a moment to reflect on the key insights we have gained today. We have
Yes.
explored how religion serves as a compass for orientation in challenging environments, examined the experiences of Rohingya and Yazidi communities, and discussed the role of religious and cultural practices in identity building. Well, our discussion have highlighted the importance of engaging with religious and cultural leaders while acknowledging both the challenges and opportunities involved. Moving forward, I encourage all of us to think critically about how these themes apply to our own work and research. Before we conclude, I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Professor Alexander Horstmann, and to all of you for your active participation. Your insights and engagement have made this session truly valuable. We hope to continue these discussions in future collaborations and research projects. Thank you once again, and we look forward to staying connected. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Alexander Horstmann, for your valuable workshop and ideas. I personally have a lot of learned a lot of your ideas and your expertise. Thank you so much for the participants. Yeah, perhaps to another activity with you,
Sure.
Alexander.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me and for the very rich workshop, and it's really a pleasure meeting you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
All. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye.